Hi guys, thanks for joining me today. I'm Marilyn and my channel's Making with Marilyn. Now, if you happen to follow me, you might know my last video was a comparison of 4 different brands of sublimation paper. Now, I got this sublimation paper from HTVRont for me to try out. So on that video, I compared it to some other papers that I had, and I really liked it. But now I need to start really using it on some actual projects to see just how well I like it for different items. So very quickly, I'm going to make this tumbler on this video today. I've printed my design out, and this is the HTVRont paper. Background sublimation design off of Creative Fabrica, and then I got this little label thing off of Creative Fabrica, and then I just typed the word nanny. And Nanny is a friend of mine's mother, and so she's getting this for Mother's Day from her grandkids. Now, I printed my design yesterday, so it's had a long time to dry. Usually when I print them out, I'll set them under the platinum heat press. I'll just set it under there and let it dry for maybe 10 to 15 seconds under the heat. In this case, it dried all night, so I don't need to do that. But I do want to prep my cup. So I'm going to spray a little bit of alcohol on my paper towels and just clean the outside of this. And then I'll take a dry part, rub it off, and then let this dry while I'm getting my image ready. Now to cut this down, I'm just going to use this straight edge and my rotary cutter. I used to use the cutter that you pull the thing down, but I was finding that it was crinkling my paper. I need a new blade, so I'm going to do this instead. And I'm going to cut right on the edge of the design. I don't want to leave any white space, but I don't want to take away much of the design either. So I'm going to try to be right on the edge, but err a little bit on the side of being on the design. Now on the other side, I can leave a little bit of white, and then I'll just have this be on top of the other side. Now, if I don't leave any white, that's okay too. I'm just saying if one side has a little bit of white showing, that's okay. Just make sure you fold that over the other side. Okay, so no white on either side. Now, before I go much further, let me make sure that this actually does fit around the cup still. And it does, with a little bit of overlap. Okay, so I need to make sure I have this on the right way. I want to make sure that the top of the paper is even with the top of the cup. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over, get it to where it needs to be. And by doing it this way, you can make sure that it's really straight. Okay, now that I have it where it needs to be, I'm going to go ahead and lay it down. Now, because I didn't have white on either side of this paper, I don't really have to worry about which side goes down, but I'm putting the darker side down. Let me show you what I mean. See, this is a little bit lighter, this side's a little darker, and I'd prefer to have my dark side down. So I'll put one piece of tape in the middle. Then the next piece is going to be long enough to go all the way to the bottom. So I'm just going to adhere it to the top side. And then once I know it's adhered to this top piece of paper, I'm going to hold this tight and rub around my cup, squeezing those together, and then putting it down tightly. Then I'll just do the same on this end. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and tape the top first. So I'm going to take one long piece of tape and I'm going to put this not loosely, but I'm not going to pull and stretch on the tape for this first piece. And I want to stay fairly even with the top of the cup. Doesn't have to be perfect. And I got off right there, but that's okay. That's okay. Really what this first piece of tape is for, I put it down so that then on the next piece I really do pull tight so that if there's any gaps up at the top, it really pulls those into the cup. I don't want to pull just on the paper though like that, which is why you put the first piece down, because the paper can really buckle and cause gaps. And this is a strategy that a YouTuber named Industrial Fringe taught me on one of his videos, along with teaching everyone else, and it's worked really well for me. Okay, so I'm going to look and make sure there's no gaps. If there were any gaps up here, then I would work where those gaps are, and I would really push on it to get that gap or that pucker straightened out. But I really don't see any, so I don't have to worry about it too much. So I'm just going to fold this over and adhere it to the inside of this tumbler. I have one little place that I missed. I probably don't even need another piece of tape, but I'm going to feel better if I put one there. Then I'm just going to go ahead and fast forward this, but I'm going to do the exact same process that I did at the top of the cup at the other end. Okay, then I'm just going to take something and kind of burnish down on that just to make sure that it's nice and smooth. Okay, for some people this is overkill. For me, using a little extra tape is just added insurance. I don't mind doing it at all. And I really do like this wide tape. I think it's 20 millimeters wide. It's wider than the first tape I started using, and I like this. So I'll put a link to the tape. If it turns out well, I'll put a link to the HTVRont paper, and those will be in the video description. Okay, here's my tumbler press. The first thing I'm going to do is make sure that I have it adjusted correctly. So before I turn any heat on, I'm going to go ahead and put the tumbler inside and make sure that I don't need to tighten it or loosen it. Now in my case it feels kind of loose, so I'm going to turn these knobs and tighten it up just a little bit. Okay, now that I have it where I think it should be, I'm going to go ahead and turn it on. And then let me hit set and see what it is set to reach. 385, that's exactly where I want it to be. And it's set for 50 seconds. Again, that's where I want it to be. So at this point, I'm just going to give it a couple of minutes to heat up. Okay, so this is heated up, and the way I do this, first of all, I feel like the best pressure is on the front or the back, where it's squeezing it together. I feel like the pressure on the front and the back is better than the top and the bottom. So what I want to do is I want the front of my design and the seam, which is the opposite side, I want the front of my design to either be in the front or the back. Then after 50 seconds, I'm going to turn it 180 degrees. It'll be the exact opposite. Then after 50 more seconds, I'm just going to turn it a quarter, do it for 20 seconds, and then all the way 180 degrees. So all four sides is up at some point. You might have a way that works better for you. You might feel like that's overkill, but I was having issues with my tumblers. I saw this method on Industrial Fringe's channel, and I haven't had any issues since then. Okay, the other thing is I'm going to use some butcher paper as kind of a sling. Okay, so my seam is going to be at the front, which means my design is at the back. Okay, so I'm turning it 180 degrees, and so now that seam is going to be at the back. So now I'll turn it just 90 degrees, so the seam could either be at the bottom or the top. In this case, I rotated it, it's at the top. I'll heat that for 20 seconds, so I'll have to watch the timer. I'll go ahead and open that when it hits 30. Now for the last press, I'm putting the seam to the bottom, so 180 degrees, because that's the only place that seam hasn't been yet. Okay, then I'm just going to set it on this tile and let it cool down just for a couple of minutes. Okay, that's still pretty hot, but the glare of this tile is too much. So I'm going to hold it with my gloved hand and just kind of pull at the tape. Now, what I often like to do, without accidentally scratching the tumbler, is just make a slit in the tape. That way you can start pulling it off. Oh, that is hot. That is hot when that paper comes off. Now, by the time I finished making this and taken off the paper, it was like 1 in the morning. So I took a little break. I'm back today. Here's the tumbler. It turned out very, very nice. The seam looks nice. The top and the bottom look very nice. And then I made something for my friend. So this is for my friend's mom. And then I made this for my friend. I used the HTVRont paper on it as well. And this is one of those short little koozies. And without the big old word nanny in front, you can see the design just a little bit better. Now I forgot to mirror this, so the design looks a little different, but it works since there's no words on it. Now, given these results, I love the paper. You can see that most of the color comes off the paper. This is what I used for my smaller one. I already threw away when I made my nanny cup, the bigger one, but it really does have good color release. And it doesn't bleed through the top. And I found that out when I was doing this on fabric. Now, despite that, I will always use some type of butcher paper or something to protect my heat presses, but I was pretty impressed with this paper. So thank you so much for joining me and sticking it out through my experiments. Until my next video, bye-bye.